Welcome to Brainstoryum. I'm Anna Tizard, award-winning dreampunk and deeply weird fantasy author. And yes, that's me and my fiction that's deeply weird. Explore and imagine with me the most unexpected story ideas using the surrealist word game of Exquisite Corpse. Find out more and join in at annatizard.com. This is a storytelling challenge unlike anything you've tried before. Hello, imaginative people. I'm Anna Tizard and this is episode 84 of Brainstoryum. I mentioned last time, I think, how lately circumstances have left me a bit isolated and I haven't been able to get out as much as I'd like. And it's not that long before the four walls start to feel quite frustrating. It prompted me to think about a phrase I used to use more among friends to describe a book or a short story that is so well written it makes you feel nourished. I'd say it was word food, because as an author, maybe it is true to some degree that you are what you read, or have read, or have valued reading. It's not quite as direct as you are what you eat, because that's more physical, to do with literal nutrition affecting how well your cells regenerate and all the millions of bodily processes that go on. But you get the idea. Some stories and poems make us feel nourished, and they're likely good for our writing too, as we naturally absorb the rhythms and sounds and general deliciousness of quality literature. But one experience reminded me unexpectedly of this word food idea and how I should probably extend it to experience food, if that's not too ridiculous. Because all life is experience. Everything that happens to us affects how we feel. Some events may even change us, change the way we think and what we expect. And if we find ourselves stuck indoors with the four walls of the apocalypse, as I nicknamed them during the COVID lockdowns, it will help not just our writing but our overall mental health if we find ways to stimulate our imaginations or just seek out interesting facts on blogs or in podcasts, if nothing else. Now, what happened, and this is quite a boring problem, low stress, is I lost my metronome. I have lost my metronome more times than I could tell you. I don't know what it is about my metronome that I think I've put it somewhere nice and logical. Oh yes, I'll find that again. That's an obvious place to keep it. So obvious that when I next feel inspired to get really stuck into some mandolin practice, I can't find it again. It's small, black, with red around the edges. Well, I sat down to meditate one day around this time, and it was in the quietness of that moment that I became more intensely aware of the clock in our hallway, chipping away the seconds. It's one of those funny things where, when you switch off your brain, a simple solution rises to the surface, like a small wiggly fish. Why don't I just use the clock instead? For now. It's not as versatile, it only does 60 beats per minute, but funnily enough, that's the exact timing that was being used by an online mandolin teacher I've been watching the day before on YouTube. She used 60 beats per minute to practice about 5 or 6 different rhythms against that steady background beat. So I did. The wonders of the unconscious mind when you give it a little moment, a breather away from all the information overload that we get every day. The point of this story? Meditation is great for stirring the imagination and helping you make connections you might not make through conscious effort. But not just that. I noticed the story I was writing at the time was suddenly full of clocks. It was the Alice in Wonderland style story I began, it's a couple of episodes ago, number 82, I think, with the garden cafe a banshee, and a selection of golden doorknobs that would open portals into other places. And while it isn't a bad thing to have clocks in a story, clocks are rather curious objects to me, and I associate them with Alice in Wonderland, it reminded me that your imagination will use the stimulus you give it. So make lots of ideas available to it, especially if you're stuck indoors for whatever reason. Give it word food, give it experience food, and more will stir from under the surface. More wiggly fish will come up to kiss the surface. Different kinds of fish. Things that aren't even fish. You get the idea. I still haven't found my metronome. Did I mention it's small, black, with red around the edges? Do let me know if you find it. Now, in the last show, I asked for your ideas based on the writing prompt, the susurrant hat. I was a little bit worried at first that I'd gone too weird with this because I didn't get any responses for a good few days. But then a whole load came in, and as usual, I was amazed at the sheer range of ideas and flavours on this rather bizarre word combination that had me a little bit stumped, I have to say. Daniel P. Riley wrote this scene. Everything'll be fine, I got you. I wasn't sure where the voice came from, and it kind of freaked me out at first. But as the day wore on and the sun got real high and real hot, I came to appreciate that little voice. Don't you worry none, it would say, and I believed it. Hell, I might not have made it through the day out in them fields if it hadn't. A couple times, especially when I took a break, I can honestly tell you all, I was dead done and sweatier than a smoked hog. But that voice came back round again and said, you got this, I won't let you down. And it was right. I got back on out there and finished. Man, oh man, when I got in that night, felt really good to get it all done. I took my cowboy hat off, got me a cold one, and put my feet up for the evening. Hell, tomorrow, I'm fixing to repair that old fence out the back line, high heat or not. Got my trusty hat to keep the sun off. Know what I mean? This is so good. It's quite subtle the way it winds in this little voice of the hat and makes you wonder what might happen next. Will it always be a supportive presence? What is going on here? What motivates the hat? And will the moods change? I also wondered what it would have sounded like in an American accent, which I cannot do. Sorry about that. But fascinating, a glimpse of a story there. Thank you, Daniel. Nick Vrakar said, Tim saw the old fedora, wondered if it would look good on him. He smoothed out the old battered hat and tried it on. You look terrific, a voice whispered in his head. You look better than ever. You can do anything. There's nothing you can't do. There's nothing you shouldn't do. Oh my word, Nick, where is this going? Love it. This is ripe with possibilities. An evil hat to lead you astray. Now, there are a couple of short responses, really short responses, on social media when I asked if a hat could whisper, what would it say? Anne E. Burley said, I've got you covered. Fair enough. Glenn Adams said, Hufflepuff. It works. This is true. This is something a hat might whisper. Stokey Lee said, please quit tugging on me as if I'll stretch a mile. And while we're on the subject, leave me on one level. This tilting stuff is making me queasy. Oh, and while I'm on it, why is your head so big? Do you pack that much knowledge into your head, or are the questions backed up? Great stuff. Some sort of mental constipation being referred to there. And hats with attitude. Hats with suggestions, ideas, opinions about the lives of those who wear them, and the heads on which they sit. Finally, Eric Montgomery said, "No one remembers where the hat came from, only that it speaks, but never loud, and never kind. It whispers things no one should know. Who's lying? What's missing? What waits beneath the floorboards? Some say it feeds on secrets. Others say it leaves them behind." This is quite hauntingly suggestive. Something that feeds on secrets. Well, that's quite a creature idea in a way. And actually, that's a great question to ask when thinking about weird creature fiction, which is kind of my theme at the moment. I'm still trying to stick by this theme because I am building a collection, as you know. If it's conscious, what does it feed upon? An evocative take on the susurrant hat. Thank you, Eric. And you can hear more of Eric's thought-provoking microfiction and poetry responses to writing prompts on his amazing podcast, The Prompted Podcast, which you can find at thepromptedpodcast.org. Now that's some serious word food. Right, now it's time to test our imaginations with brand new writing challenges which can only be found in The Socks of Destiny. That's right, and for those who haven't listened before or played before, Exquisite Corpse mixes words and phrases from different players into a very weird sentence that goes describing word noun, action, describing word noun. And it's up to our imaginations to make sense of these bizarre sentences. So I'm reaching into the describing word sock. This is from Alessandro Bozzo. Bulbous. So someone or something that is bulbous, that has a bulbous shape. The next word is a noun from Paul Benfield. Lamp. A bulbous lamp. Okay, so I can kind of picture that because that would just be very rounded. And funny enough, surely it must be linked to the word bulb, which you'd get in a lamp. So this seems quite serendipitous. So I'm going to reach into the action sock. Let me just find, what's this? This is from Mariah. Developed a crazy theory about a conspiracy against. So hang on a second, we have a bulb. Sorry, a bulbous, what was it? A bulbous lamp that develops a theory about someone or something, a conspiracy. This is very interesting. We might have to not take this literally, but hey, such are the challenges of Exquisite Corpse. The next word is also from Mariah. Grumpy. Okay, so we all know what that means. So the final word and the grumpy character is... Oh, it's from Mariah again. All your words are rising to the top, Mariah. Carnival manager. Oh, wow. I really like that. I've no idea what this sentence means, but I really like it because it's got weird lights in it and conspiracy theories. So altogether we have the bulbous lamp developed a crazy theory about a conspiracy against the grumpy carnival manager. Is this like, I'm imagining this carnival with coloured lights, bulbous coloured lights, sort of dangling around the place, around the edges of tents, or around the edges of, say, the sort of parasol-shaped rooftop for the bumper cars, something like that. If this is a carnival with all the usual colours and crazy music and excitement and the sickly sweet smell of candy floss and caramel roasted nuts. There's a bulbous lamp, or could we cheat and say it's someone who is illuminated by a bulbous lamp, who has developed a theory, a conspiracy theory, about the grumpy carnival manager. This does sound like the curious basis for some kind of tale. Will this be the exquisite corpse that inspires me today, or will it be something else? I think I need to reach into the socks again. Oh, there's one that's kind of jumped to the top. This is from Riley B. Cold-hearted. Okay, let's find out who or what was cold-hearted. This is from Paul Thomas. Lichgate. So I had to look this up. This is a roofed gateway to a churchyard, formerly for sheltering coffins at funerals. That is curious. So we have a cold-hearted lichgate, this gateway to a churchyard. Another interesting space, but very different. Feels very different from a carnival. We have an action from Paul Benfield. Oh my goodness. Foretold the destiny of. Right. Okay, so it sounds at first glance, like we have objects that are associated with unusual places telling us things, theorising about things, about people's lives, and what they mean, or what they're supposed to be doing. Interesting that a similar kind of thing is going on in both Exquisite Corpses, even though they're completely different otherwise. So the next word is from Wendy. Eager. Okay. Final word. Who's this from? This is from Paul Thomas. Sexton. Interesting. This is, and yes, I did have to write it down because I was a little bit uncertain. I knew it's something to do with churches. A person who looks after a church and a churchyard. Often a bell ringer and a grave digger. Ooh, now because we've got Lichgate in earlier on in the Exquisite Corpse, this kind of comes together. So all together we have the cold-hearted Lichgate, or roofed gateway to a churchyard, foretold the destiny of the eager sexton. Good grief. I mean, who else would know about the destiny of the sexton than the Lichgate, who's probably, well, if a Lichgate or if any place could have consciousness watching on, then it would be the Lichgate. If Lichgates could speak. Now this is funny. I'm getting a little bit of, I'm thinking of this as quite serendipitous because I have been working on a long short story the last couple of weeks, a story about a place as a monster. I'm wondering how far I can take this. Can you have a place as a monster? I'm thinking maybe, but I'm not quite sure whether the monster itself needs to be fleshed out. So in terms of something roving under the pavement, something more than, say, an old historical village that is become buried underneath a town. Do you, when you have a protagonist who's exploring this and finds themselves confronted with pavements that are cracking open, gaping open like a mouth, and people being swallowed by this? Yes, it gets that weird. I'm just thinking, do I need to create an actual monster within? Do I need to give it eyes, a face, claws, any of these attributes, a body? Does it need specific features like this? Or can it simply be the actual pavement itself, or a piece of history in a way, sort of buried underneath a town? I'm not really sure, so if you have any thoughts on this at all, or if you've read anything that is like that, please get in touch. But I think, for now, I think it's time to reach into the socks of destiny for the final Exquisite Corpse, and then I'm going to consider which one do I want to pick out and try writing a scene about. So our first word, the third Exquisite Corpse of the day, is from Mariah. You are killing it today, Mariah, with the words headless. So we're straight into horror now. Next word is from Wendy. Gecko. So that's some kind of lizard, is it not? Goodness. Oh dear. Next word. Oh, sorry, not next word. Next entry, which is the action, is from Paul Benfield. Almost passed unnoticed by. So a headless gecko is apparently completely unnoticeable to this next character. This is from Paul Thomas. Skeletal. Ooh, I think Halloween just came early. Final word. Oh my goodness. It's from Wendy again. Whoops. And I've thrown it on the floor. Excellent. Muscle car. So this is like a sort of high performance American made car. I think they've got like a really cool engine, a very powerful engine, and they often have two doors, I think. But a skeletal muscle car? Would that mean the car has been stripped down? Had some of its body removed? So that's slightly less scary or spooky than a person. Altogether, for this Exquisite Corpse, we have the headless gecko almost passed unnoticed by. The skeletal muscle car. But because it's a car, I feel like that's the thing that's passing. It's passing by a headless gecko. What is going on in this town where you have headless geckos wandering around and then skeletal muscle cars? It's still, I think, because of the story that I've been writing, I'm now getting these strange extra ideas. These ideas seem to be suggesting themselves to me in this form of a really weird town where things, objects are coming alive. The ordinary parts of the town are coming alive. I'm thinking the gecko probably has to be just perhaps a billboard that happens to have a gecko on it for an advert, some drink or other, whether it's beer or some other refreshing fruit drink. But the the head part's broken off, and there's skeleton cars driving around of their own accord in a very weird town during a storm. I think it needs to be during a storm. Something has stirred up this town. Anyway, not sure if I can use any of this, but let me have some green tea and consider which of these three Exquisite Corpses I might be able to use. And of course, there will be a prompt for you, although, of course, you can come to me with a story idea or mini scene or a poem based on anything that crops up in the show. I'd love to hear from you. So we have altogether the bulbous lamp developed a crazy theory about a conspiracy against the grumpy Carnival manager. Then we have the cold-hearted Lichgate foretold the destiny of the eager sexton. And why was he or she eager? And finally, perhaps most bizarrely, the headless gecko almost passed unnoticed by the skeletal muscle car. Okay, time for some green tea, I think. feel drawn to this first one with the carnival feel and the bulbous lamp. Let me use the magic of the pause button to see where I can take this, or should I say, where it will take me. Oi, pet, you left your scarf behind. But the girl had disappeared. Madame Della dropped her hands by her sides, staring through the busy park. Shrouded in the fast-falling dusk, dozens of kids, mostly teenagers, mooched around on the well-trodden grass in their jackets and jeans, dropping sweet wrappers everywhere, laughing at the world. The ones that came to see her, she never remembered their names. That was Pixel's job. She sighed and trudged back into the tiny marquee, more like a booth draped in fabric that might have been a giant patterned skirt. She felt as raggedy and weathered as it looked. She grumbled under her breath at the stitched-on sign that curved over the flap of the door, currently unlit with these unreliable lights. She needed to repair the de la to add the extra L, make it official. She used to be Madame de la Future, but she lost the future. The alteration from the original naff name annoyed the carnival manager, Mr. Exby, but he didn't appreciate the subtleties of being a clairvoyant. Really, what was going to happen was rooted in the here and now, in the present, and reading the present tense was her specialty. But he was always grumpy anyway and would never understand. But she allowed herself a secret smile as she lifted the door flap. There was no one quite like Madame Della. The bulbous fairy lights strung along the doorway fizzled on again, the orange one shedding a glow through the fabric onto her wrist. These lights, what was wrong with them? She backed out to peer again at them and bumped into Pixel, his cheeky, mud-smudged face grinning up at her. "What you doing here?" Madame Della waved him off like a fly buzzing around a hot dog. "You're meant to be off finding me new customers." The little thing had the audacity to pout. "I need a break," he squeaked. "And wasn't that last one juicy enough for you?" Madame Della raised her eyebrows. "Aye, that was a good one. You did some good detective work there, my little chap." She ruffled his hair and he grinned up at her like a puppy who was a good dog. And it was a good job. He trailed after likely teenagers, mostly girls, who had that misty, heart-aching look about them, listening in to their conversations, picking up names, dreams, longings. Then he jumped out, as if from nowhere, offered them a free lollipop on behalf of the carnival, which had an advert for Madame Della along the stick. After a few hints and a bit of encouragement, the girls would find their way to her tent. Once it was in their eager sights, Pixel mysteriously disappeared. He was very quick, that boy, and skinny, and could hide better than a weasel in a hole. Further mystified and intrigued, the girls would be sure to creep towards the tent, feeling the invisible hand of destiny beckoning, while Pixel texted Madame Della all he knew about them at lightning speed. Perhaps she didn't pay him enough. But that last girl with her boyfriend troubles and mascara-encrusted astonishment was only the second one of the night. Neither of them would make any decent money tonight if Pixel kept slacking off. "Oh, but I know something," said Pixel, narrowing his dark eyes. "Know what?" Madame Della planted her hands on her stout hips, waiting for it. He leaned closer and whispered, "About Mr. Exby." Madame Della frowned, not moving. Then she huffed and beckoned him into the tent. Might as well get it over with, whatever this was. "Well, aren't you going to offer me a seat?" Pixel's eyes glittered with mischief, glancing hungrily over the crystal ball on the table, which was covered with a piece of black fabric, as it should be, and the two fold-out wooden chairs either side of it. She rolled her eyes. "Go on, then." But to her surprise, he scrambled over to the opposite chair, her chair. Before she could stop him, he'd whipped off the fabric cover, and his dirty, sticky hands were roving all over the crystal ball as he muttered some made-up language to himself in a mockery of her profession. Pixel, get your hands off that! He paused, his mock rapture to widen his eyes at her innocently. But I'm not even touching it. Look. Hands twitching to just grab him and haul him off, Madame Della pursed her lips and leaned over to examine the ball. True, he'd been careful not to touch it, just hover his fingertips away from it. Even so, this was getting a bit much. She began to say, "Now look here," when something made them both stiffen and stare down. The crystal ball was glowing. A misty white light emanated from the orb. Madame Della was reminded of a shaken snow globe, if there were nothing else inside it but snow, only very finely granulated flakes, and each one lit as if by moonlight. "Oh, what is that?" Madame Della crept over to the other chair and dumped herself down on it, her disbelieving eyes never leaving the orb. "It's never done that before." Pixel, for once, had nothing to say. His fingers still pronged the air around the crystal ball as if half afraid to move 1 millimetre in case it broke the spell. For once, Madame Della agreed with him wholeheartedly. "Pixel, what were you thinking about? What were you feeling just as you spread your hands like that?" Pixel mumbled something, looking panicked. "It's okay." Madame Della spread her hands near to his, softly encouraging. "Go with it. Follow the flow of thoughts." She had several years' experience in this art, except, no, she hadn't really. It was all an empty trick, though it came with the skill to read people, sort of romance them into dreaming about themselves, their future. And people were always thinking about themselves, so it wasn't that hard. But this was different. "Tell me, Pixel. It was something to do with Mr. Exby, wasn't it?" Now I have to stop there because I ran out of time before I needed to record this. I also want to take a moment to decide what I really want the conspiracy theory to be. For this was, of course, based on the Exquisite Corpse. The bulbous lamp developed a crazy theory about a conspiracy against the grumpy Carnival manager. A bit wordy, that one. And it's not really the bulbous lamp that has a theory, but a boy who develops an unexpected way with a crystal ball that glows. I'll tell you what I'm thinking about the structure of this, what I might do. You know I like my twists, or you do if you're a regular listener, or if you've read some of my books. I'm not satisfied unless I have a twist or a surprise. So whatever it is the boy says about the Carnival manager may not turn out to be true, or it may turn out to be partially true. Then the truth about this man that we glimpse at the end has to be even worse than any theory said about him. Or the theory the boy has is so unbelievable as to be laughable, then it turns out to be true. I think that would take longer to set up because I think as a reader reading that, I would probably gather that was the intended twist. So it's quite hard to catch people unawares and manage to get that surprise that you're going for. But this Carnival manager, could he be a creature of some kind? Now that piques my interest, not just because I'm building a collection of short stories on the theme of weird creatures, although that is still a good reason to be drawn in that direction. Plus, it would be a rather different one to add to the collection because the story certainly doesn't start out feeling like a creature story. There's a sense of mystery around the flickering fairy lights too at the beginning. I mean, this is a first draft, unedited. I was thinking at first about those lights having something to do with it because of the bulbous lamp in the Exquisite Corpse. But then as I carried on writing, because I did this in one sitting, I sort of realised it needed to be the crystal ball in the end that lights up and becomes the focus of this theory or potential truth about the grumpy carnival manager. So I might edit those bits out about the fairy lights in the beginning, depending on where this goes, unless that comes to feature in some way. What will it be, this deadly secret? Does this carnival manager collect screams from teenagers on rides? I'm not sure. Perhaps the idea will occur to me during a meditation, or I will find something suitably revolting in the world of nature and science as I scour journals and podcasts and books on experience food. Whatever it turns out to be, I know it will be creepy and weird. Stay tuned if you'd like to know more. Now, what shall I choose as a writing prompt for you this time? Bulbous lamp on its own doesn't quite say enough, I don't think. I quite like the grumpy carnival manager on its own because if you think about it, it seems unlikely that a carnival manager would usually be in a bad mood. I mean, what a great job. Thinking outside the story I've been drafting, what other reasons could you think of that a carnival manager would be grumpy? See if you can get creative with that. Another possibility might be the skeletal muscle car, if you prefer the sound of that. How is this muscle car skeletal? Has it been stripped down as part of a disguise to cover up its original shape or model? Or is there something of the undead about it? Maybe this word combination has a little bit more stretch to it from a fantasy perspective. Well, either way, you know what to do. Go to annatizard.com and hit the contact button on any page footer. Up to one paragraph is, of course, ideal, whether it's microfiction, a short poem, or a description of a story idea. And let me know if you'd like a shout out with that, because you can do it anonymously if you prefer. Let me know by Friday 11th July, as that is when I'll be needing to record. Until next time, go forth and be inspired. I hope you enjoyed today's Brainstoryum. You can find out more about Exquisite Corpse and my series, The Book of Exquisite Corpse, at annatizard.com. Subscribe to my e-newsletter and you'll get volume 1 for free. And while you're there, why not submit a few words to the Socks of Destiny on my play page? You may inspire me or inspire yourself to write a unique new story. See you next time.